social media land. I am Ted Victor, founder of the Broward Social Network. The Broward Social Network is a company which, among many endeavors, aims to politically engage the public. This evening, we have a guest running for commissioner in the wonderful city of Coral Springs, Khurrum Wahid. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Khurrum Wahid, what is your message to social media land?
First of all, I want to thank you very much for having me on. It's very exciting to talk to you all out there.
Talk to us about who is Khurrum Wahid. Why are you the candidate to vote for?
So I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for about 20 years now in Florida. I am licensed in Florida and New York. I have been doing mostly criminal defense and civil litigation. I do a lot of civil rights related work. I've also done a lot of nonprofit business related consulting for nonprofits, as well as government affairs work for those nonprofits, essentially trying to get funding from our legislature or work with governments, both national, state, and local, in order to help the cause.
Awesome. Did you go to school here?
I grew up in Canada.
Okay.
Went to undergrad at University of Toronto.
Okay.
I then went off to law school in San Diego at Thomas Jefferson School of Law.
Awesome.
Then came back out here with my wife, and at that time, 2-year-old daughter, Sumra. We moved into Coral Springs in '99, and I started working with the Public Defender's Office in Miami.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter, my wife got a residency in New York, so she left to do her residency. She's a OBGYN now.
So you are a doctor-lawyer couple. That's a very, very busy household. How have you been able to raise the kids?
You know, I would like to say they raised themselves, but, you know, it takes a village is the right answer. And, you know, my parents, my wife's parents, were critically important to that. My sister lives in Coral Springs. My brother and his family live in Coral Springs.
Awesome.
My parents now live in Coral Springs. So we all really live close together, and we're a very, very close-knit family. So
it's fair to say that family is very important to you.
It is the thing, honestly, and it's really the reason why I'm running in many ways.
Having said that, think about the community as a larger family. Think about Coral Springs, considering that we had the unfortunate tragedy of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas on February 14th of 2018. Talk about safety. Talk about the community, Coral Springs. What does the community mean to you?
So really, a city is really a community of communities put together.
Correct.
And every community is really just a bunch of families put together.
Correct.
I think that if you really look at it, every single family, their number one priority is to keep their children safe.
Correct.
Obviously, the tragedy at MSD really showed us the vulnerability that not
all
only
of humanity.
We all have. I feel like there was a lot we could learn from that, and we've been on that journey.
All right. So, very good. This was going to be one of my questions. How can a commissioner keep a community safe?
So look, there's 3 ways. One is we have law enforcement in our city. Coral Springs has one of the best law enforcements in the country. I think we have to make sure that they are well funded and that we give them the necessary tools to do the job. One of the things I'm advocating is body-worn cameras for our Coral Springs police. I think that will help keep them safe, and it will also increase transparency in government, and that's important. Another thing that helps keep our citizens safe is to make sure that we are doing a better job of tackling the problems that happen in our schools. This isn't just an MSD situation, but there are other problems. We recently had, sort of a fight break out in school that became a big melee in one of our schools. These types of things that are happening in our schools need to be dealt with, not necessarily through law enforcement, but through more parent engagement.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. I believe that.
So we have to talk about this with our parents. We have to find a way where the city can help engage parents. And sometimes we have to help teach parents how to be better parents, right? So we can do that, and we have opportunities in the city to bring people together.
Absolutely.
And then finally, I think we have to do a better job of just making sure that we have services in place. We recently had a couple of suicides at from MSD children.
Unfortunately.
And we have to talk about these things with our kids, and we have to figure out how do we make sure the city's providing services that will help these children in times of trouble.
Okay, so You've mentioned quite a few important topics. As you know, I'm an educator of over 15 years, and in my view, very little happens in a civil society without education. Talk about your views on education. You're highly educated, your wife is highly educated, your family's highly educated.
It almost goes without saying that I value education more than almost anything else. And I came from a family that was their main cultural priority. You know, my family are full of doctors and engineers and CPAs and that sort of thing. In fact, I was the first lawyer in the family. It was kind of like the black sheep moment.
Awesome.
Lawyers are liars was the old saying back then. But bottom line is that I really think that a city is, again, a bunch of families. And families come to a city because of their children, because of a life that they want to see for those children. And it starts with the education. It starts with, is this an A school district or is this a not A school district? That's always the conversation. So a city like Coral Springs, when I moved here in '99, was an A school district. And one of the reasons we moved here as a young family back then is because of the schools. We wanted to raise our kids in a great environment that was safe, but also an environment where they could go and get the best education. That is something we have to bring back to Coral Springs, and we have to work with our county and our school board to make that happen. And that has to happen all over the county. I think this is just isolated to Coral
Correct.
Springs.
Correct.
So it's something that we all have to work on together. But this is a county-city combined effort that has to happen. There are some things right now I would say, look, if you go and look at business development in any city, it starts with the schools, believe it or not. Businesses come to a community and
Based on the schools.
Right, they're going to say, I want to move my family there, so I still have to figure out, is the school good for my kids before I decide I'm going to build my whole business there? Am I going to have a talent base there to hire from? Are the schools going to develop that talent base? All of those things are interconnected. So economic development all
Absolutely.
comes down to
Intertwined.
what's the education system. So the foundation to build any future for a city is the schools.
Absolutely. Khurrum, you wonderfully stated earlier that a city consists of communities within communities. This leads into a conversation about diversity. How can you, Hurrum Wahid, be the voice for all of the members of your community? Because obviously, as a commission, you have to be able to be the voice for everyone, whether you're tall or short, whether you're left or right.
Absolutely. Look, I think that as a visible minority, I think I can definitely relate to other minority groups, no matter what those groups are, whether it's ethnic, religious, racial, or gender, or disability. All of those things there's a common string, and that through line is something I'm familiar with because I've been part of it in my life. But I've also been a bridge builder my whole life. I'm on the Florida Supreme Court's Diversity and Fairness Committee. I have been for about 4 years now. I was appointed by the Supreme Court justices to that. Before that, was a founding member of the Florida Bar's Committee on Diversity and Inclusion and a former vice chair of that committee. I'm part of a group called MCCJ, which is the Miami Coalition for Christians and Jews, which is a bridge building, bringing understanding between communities, bridging not just faiths, but religions, ethnicities, and cultures. And I've been part of that since 2011. So I have a long history of doing the bridge building needed that, quite frankly, I believe every city commissioner has a mandate to do. They have to bring together all the people from their city. They have to not just make sure that one voice is heard, but all the voices in their city are heard and understood. I think there's a lot I can do to help not just bridge ethnic and cultural gaps in our city, but quite frankly, the socioeconomic gaps.
Having said that, what are the statistics in terms of demographics of Coral Springs?
Well, it's a pretty diverse town now. It didn't used to be, but it is today. About 20% African American, about 25% Hispanic. There's another maybe 15 to 20% mixed between different Caribbean communities and Asian communities, and then the balance is still predominantly Anglo.
What's the size of your city? What's the population?
130,000 people.
And how many of those are registered voters?
Something in the range of about 70,000.
70,000 out of the 130?
Yes.
And on average, how many come out to vote?
So November we had about 55,000 voters for this same seat. Actually, that was on the ballot back in November, and in that race, just shy of 55,000 people voted.
Okay, so if this seat was in the election last November in 2018, why are you running so soon? What happened?
So the candidate who won was the incumbent, Dan Daly, and Dan Daly became the state representative for the area.
Okay.
And that meant he had to resign his seat as Coral Springs commissioner for seat 2.
Okay.
That is the seat that's now open, and it's on the June 18th election ballot.
So once again, so that the viewers can remember the date of your election is
June 18th.
June 18th. And where can they vote? Because since it's a special election, are they able to go to the usual precincts, or is there a specific location?
So it's the usual precincts. Coral Springs has 34 precincts. There are going to be, I believe, 29 polling stations, though. The March 12th mayor election had essentially the exact same setup. So if you voted in March 12th, you would probably know exactly where to go vote. If you didn't, those details will be out soon. They'll also be on our website, electwahid.com.
Let's repeat that again. electwahid.com.
Yes, ELECTWAHID.
All right, so that's for them to find out more about you. That's for them to possibly make some donations to the campaign, and also for possibly volunteering.
To volunteer. We have buttons for all of those things, and I also encourage folks to follow us on Facebook. We are at Elect Wahid on Facebook, and you're actually going to get much more up-to-date information. We're posting daily where we are, where we're going. If you want to meet with me, I would love to meet with you. And so please come find us. You'll see all of the locations we're going to be at on our Facebook page.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, this is really the best candidate for the seat, for the job. Now, once you're elected, talk about your plans, your vision for the city. What are you going to actually conquer or be able to address once you're in office in the wonderful city of Coral Springs?
So look, I have 2 or 3 things I really feel need to get done. We talked about schools, that we have to sit down and meet with our county and figure out how to improve our schools. If it means that the city of Coral Springs can put aside some money for the schools in Coral Springs, then I think that's something we should prioritize and get done. Even the aesthetics of the schools are important. You drive by some of the schools and they say, national, excellence 1991 or something.
Yeah.
That doesn't really sell the school. And
Right.
if you ask any of the realtors in town, when they drive folks by those schools, that is often the low point of the tour to get folks to move into Coral Springs. So we have to deal with schools first. Second, parks. When I moved here in '99, the parks were great. Well, the parks are identical today, 20 years later. They haven't really
been
changed
updated
at all. Where are people going? They're going to Parkland to take their kids to splash pads and water parks, and the more modern facilities are there. We need to bring those to Coral Springs. These are all things that can be done within the existing budget. We don't really have to add more budget. We have the money. We just have to move it around a little bit. Another thing is, as I mentioned earlier, we want to, I think, make sure that both police officers are safe and there is transparency in government, and add body-worn cameras to the police department. We also need to look at the infrastructure of our city. Everyone talks about economic development, but the infrastructure, which is your utilities, your sewage, all of those things have to be able to handle whatever it is you want to develop. So we have to make sure we're looking at that. And some of those things are in need of investment. So we have to work with the county and work with the different water districts to invest in those things while we simultaneously court development above ground. Finally, we have to talk about economic development and what that really means. To me, economic development is small business. Small businesses are the lifeblood of Coral Springs. They are the folks who live there, work there, play there. They are the people who generate income there and spend income there. They're the ones who feed their families and the families of their employees. That's economic development 101. We need to do a better job of shining a light on our local businesses, make sure we're doing what we can to get rid of some of the code issues that restrict them, make sure they can promote their businesses properly, and quite frankly, do a better job of making sure we all eat Coral Springs, buy Coral Springs, things of that nature. One of the things I really want to see is us collectively as a commission have a long-term vision, a 15, 20-year vision. I feel like the city has had very often a short-term vision, and then what ends up happening is every 2 or 4 years, as your candidates switch out of the elected position, you tend to have a change in the vision. We need to stick to that vision. We need to empower our city manager and his team to do what needs to be done long-term for both the economic security of the city and, quite frankly, to make sure that the citizens of the city are well taken care of.
All right, so as we close this interview, what sets you apart? Even though you've given me enough reason, I'd vote for you. Unfortunately, I can't because I don't live in Coral Springs. What sets you apart from your candidates? Talk to social media land and let them know why is it that you're the absolute best candidate for this seat.
So look, I'm very qualified. I've been an attorney for 20 years. I have built a business from nothing to a very successful business as a law firm. I've also built another business which goes out and finds innovative technology inventors and puts them together with government that are looking for those solutions. This is a win-win. It's a win for the inventor and it's a win for our taxpayers. I've also built a civic engagement non-for-profit. It started here in South Florida. It's now in 7 states around the country with a national office and a budget of about $2 million just in the last 12 years. I know not just how to have a vision, but how to implement that vision. And I have the skill set to do that. As an attorney, I've also worked in government affairs. I understand legislation. I understand how to draft it and how to deconstruct it. I understand how to make sure it's constitutionally sound. I also know how to make sure that we're taking all viewpoints into account when we're drafting any policy. Finally, I have been somebody who really wants to invest in people, and I've done that my entire life. I've been a mentor. I'm on the board of the Koziak Minority Mentoring Foundation. I'm on the Florida Bar's Leadership Academy, which mentors young lawyers into leadership. I have been doing this my entire life. I believe the bottom line, when it comes down to it, is it's a city of people, and we have to invest in people. I have a lifelong experience of doing that, and that's part of my vision. So I do think not only am I qualified, but I do believe that I'll be able to take this city to the next level and make sure that we are continuing to be a leader here in Florida.
Well, respectfully, Wahid, in addition to your qualifications, based on what I've heard and based on what I know of you, your heart is in the right place. Your spirit is in the right place. And in addition to being qualified, being knowledgeable, and having a lot of work experience, you are a person for the people. And having said that, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard this candidate speak, and I'm asking you on June 18th to choose Khurrum Wahid to be your next commissioner in the wonderful city of Coral Springs. Are there any closing remarks?
I just want to make sure folks understand that while there's no early voting, you can absentee ballot vote. So
Absolutely.
vote by mail.
Very important. Very important.
And the vote by mail ballots
Conveniently from your home.
Exactly.
And to be clear, this is nonpartisan seat, and it's also citywide.
That's correct.
So this means everyone in the city, absolutely everyone, can vote for Khurrum Wahid.
Yes. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ted Victor signing out from the Broward Social Network. Thank you very much for your time. I'm asking you again on June 18th to go out, ask your friends, your neighbors, and everyone you know to come out and vote for Khurrum Wahid on June 18th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.